my God!
What are the early warning signs of a heart attack? Our bodies have a beautiful, intricate language all their own. They speak to us not in words, but in feelings, sensations, and subtle shifts that whisper secrets about our well-being. Throughout our lives, we learn to interpret some of these signals: the ache of a tired muscle after a day in the garden, the warmth of a contented sigh. But there are other, more urgent messages that can be quieter, more confusing, and far easier to dismiss. When it comes to the health of our heart, learning to listen to these gentle, early warnings can be one of the most powerful, life-affirming skills we can ever cultivate. For far too long, the story of a heart attack has been told in a single, dramatic way, shaped more by movies than by reality. We imagine a sudden, crushing chest pain that brings a person to their knees, an event so obvious it leaves no room for doubt. And while that can certainly happen, the truth for many people, especially for women, is often a much quieter, more gradual story. The first signs may not be a loud alarm bell, but a soft knock on the door, a gentle hint that something is amiss. These early signals can appear hours, days, or even weeks before a major heart event. Recognizing them is not about living in fear. It's about honoring your body with attention and responding with wisdom. It's about taking control and acting from a place of strength, not panic. Let's begin by talking about the most well-known of these signals: chest discomfort. I use the word discomfort very intentionally because for many, it is not the sharp, stabbing pain they expect. It is more often described as a feeling of pressure, as if a heavy weight is sitting in the center of the chest. It can feel like squeezing, a deep tightness, or a sense of fullness, almost like a bad case of indigestion that is centered higher up. This sensation is typically felt in the center or left center of the chest. A crucial detail to remember is that this feeling is often not constant. It may last for a few minutes, then fade away, only to return later. This on and off pattern is what leads so many people to dismiss it, thinking, "Oh, it's gone now. It must have been nothing." But this intermittent discomfort is a classic early warning sign that a part of your heart is struggling to get the oxygen it needs. It's a plea for help from your heart muscle. Now, this discomfort doesn't always stay neatly contained within the chest. Nerves in our body create a complex and sometimes confusing roadmap. A problem originating in the heart can send its signals traveling to other, seemingly unrelated areas of the upper body. This is a phenomenon known as radiating pain, and it's another key sign to be acutely aware of. The most common pathway for this radiating discomfort is down the left arm. However, it's important to know that it can also occur in the right arm, or even in both arms simultaneously. The feeling might be a dull ache, a sense of weakness, or tingling. Another common destination for this pain is the back, often felt as a pressure point directly between the shoulder blades. It's the kind of ache that you might otherwise blame on poor posture or having slept in an awkward position. The discomfort can also travel upwards, manifesting as pain or pressure in the neck or, very specifically, the jaw. Jaw pain is a particularly subtle sign that is more common in women and is very easy to misinterpret. It can feel like a toothache that has no specific source, a dull ache that just won't go away. Some people even report the discomfort moving into their upper stomach area. As you can see, the signals can be perplexing. The key is to notice if a new, unexplained ache or pressure in any of these areas, your arms, back, neck, or jaw, seems to coincide, even loosely, with that feeling of chest discomfort. Or sometimes, this radiating pain can occur all on its own, without any chest symptoms at all. This makes it a very tricky, yet very important, piece of the puzzle. At Senior Forward Health, we are dedicated to demystifying these complex health topics, transforming confusion into clarity and confidence. The purpose of this knowledge is to arm you with awareness, so you can be the most powerful advocate for your own health. If our mission to empower a healthy, vibrant life after 60 resonates with you, We warmly invite you to subscribe and become part of our supportive community. Understanding these first two signs, chest discomfort and radiating pain, is the foundation of awareness. But they are only the beginning of the story. Many of the heart's most important early signals have nothing to do with pain at all. They are systemic signs, messages sent from your entire body as it responds to the stress of a struggling heart. In the next part of our discussion, we will explore these less obvious, yet equally critical, clues. We'll talk about your breathing, your body temperature, and what your stomach might be trying to tell you about the health of your heart. In our last conversation, we tuned into the most recognized early warning signs of a heart attack, the nuanced discomfort in the chest, and the perplexing pain that can travel to other parts of the upper body. We learned that these signals are not always loud or dramatic. Now, we will venture deeper, exploring the signs that are not confined to a single location, but rather are messages sent from your entire body as it responds to the stress of a struggling heart. These are the clues that can be even easier to dismiss, because they often mimic the feelings of everyday ailments. Let's begin with one of the most critical of these signs: shortness of breath. This is not the feeling of being winded after climbing a steep hill or rushing to catch a bus. This is a distinct and often sudden feeling that you simply cannot get a deep, satisfying breath, even when you are at rest. You might be sitting quietly, reading a book, and suddenly feel air hungry, as if you can't quite fill your lungs. So, why does this happen when the heart muscle is struggling to pump efficiently, perhaps due to a partial blockage? It can create a traffic jam of blood in the circulatory system. This congestion can back up into the vessels that lead to the lungs, making it difficult for them to function properly. This internal pressure is what causes that unsettling feeling of breathlessness. The most important thing to remember is that shortness of breath can occur with or without any chest discomfort at all. For some people, this may be their primary, or even only, warning sign that their heart is in distress. It's a signal that should always be taken seriously. Next, let's talk about a sign that can be quite unsettling: breaking out in a cold sweat. Again, this is very different from the sweating you experience on a hot summer day or during exercise. This is a sudden, clammy, cool perspiration that seems to come from nowhere. You may feel perfectly comfortable one moment, and the next, your skin feels damp and chilled, even if the room is cool. This is a direct, physical manifestation of your body's emergency response system. When your heart is in crisis, it sends alarm signals throughout your body. This triggers the fight or flight response, the same one our ancestors relied on for survival. This sudden release of stress hormones is what causes that inexplicable cold sweat. It's your body's way of sounding a major internal alarm, telling you that a serious event is underway. While it can be mistaken for a symptom of anxiety or a hot flash, if a cold sweat appears suddenly and is accompanied by any of the other signs we were discussing, it is a powerful indicator that you need to seek immediate medical help. Now we come to a sign that is incredibly common, particularly for women, and is one of the most frequently misunderstood: nausea or a feeling of indigestion. It's so easy to see why this sign is often dismissed. We've all experienced an upset stomach or heartburn after a rich meal. We might simply reach for an antacid and assume the feeling will pass. However, nausea related to a heart event often feels different. It can be a persistent, low-grade queasiness, an uncomfortable fullness in the stomach, or discomfort that closely mimics severe heartburn. In some cases, it can even lead to vomiting. The reason for this confusion lies in our anatomy. The nerves that are connected to the heart and the stomach are part of the same complex network and are located very close to one another. When the heart is sending out distress signals due to a lack of oxygen, those signals can travel along shared nerve pathways. Your brain can get the messages crossed, misinterpreting a signal from the heart as a problem in the stomach. Here is a crucial piece of advice. If you are experiencing what feels like unusually bad indigestion and it is not relieved by your usual remedies, pay very close attention. and if that feeling is accompanied by even a mild sense of fatigue, shortness of breath, or any other sign on our list, it is no longer just a stomach issue. It is a potential message from your heart that must be heard. These three signs, shortness of breath, cold sweats, and nausea, paint a picture of a body in distress. They show us that a problem in the heart is never just a problem in the heart. It's an event that affects our entire system. Learning to recognize them requires us to become gentle detectives of our own well-being, to listen with curiosity and compassion to the stories our bodies are telling us. We've now covered the classic signs and the systemic responses, but there are still a few more clues to uncover. These are perhaps the most subtle, the most personal, and for many women, the most relevant signs of all. They are the deep whispers from our body that speak to our overall energy and our emotional state. In our final part, we will explore these profound signals, including the overwhelming fatigue that is so much more than just being tired, the dizzying feeling of lightheadedness, and the sudden, unexplained anxiety that can be one of the heart's most primal cries for help. We have now journeyed through the landscape of the heart's early warning signs, from the classic feelings of chest pressure to the systemic signals of shortness of breath and nausea. We've learned that these messages can be complex and sometimes confusing. Now, we turn our attention to the most subtle, most personal, and often most overlooked clues of all. These are the deep whispers from our body that speak not of a specific pain, but of our fundamental sense of well-being, our energy, and our emotional state. For many women, learning to trust these quiet signals is the most important lesson in heart health. Let's begin with a sign that can appear days, or even weeks, before a heart attack: excessive and unusual fatigue. It is so important to understand that this is not the ordinary tiredness we feel after a poor night's sleep or a busy day with the family. This is a profound, bone-deep exhaustion that feels completely different. It can feel as though the plug has been pulled on your energy, leaving you utterly depleted for no apparent reason. Simple, everyday activities that you normally do without a second thought, like making the bed, carrying a bag of groceries, or walking to the mailbox, can suddenly feel like monumental tasks that leave you breathless and exhausted. This overwhelming fatigue is a direct result of a heart that is working much harder than it should be. If a blockage is forcing your heart to struggle to pump blood throughout your body, your entire system pays the price. Your muscles and organs are not receiving the optimal amount of oxygen-rich blood, leading to this profound sense of weariness that rest doesn't seem to fix. Because it comes on gradually and doesn't involve any sharp pain, this is perhaps the easiest symptom of all to dismiss. We blame it on age, on stress, on not sleeping well. But if you experience a new, dramatic, and unexplained drop in your energy levels, that is a significant signal from your body. It's a whisper that deserves your full attention. Another subtle sign is a feeling of lightheadedness or dizziness. This can come on suddenly, a momentary feeling of being unsteady on your feet, as if you might faint or the room is briefly spinning. This happens when the heart's pumping function is compromised, leading to a temporary decrease in blood flow and, therefore, oxygen to the brain. Of course, a fleeting moment of dizziness can be caused by many things, such as standing up too quickly or being dehydrated. But if this feeling occurs without a clear cause, especially if it's accompanied by any of the other symptoms we've discussed, it's another indicator that your cardiovascular system is under duress. Finally, we must talk about a very real, very powerful, and deeply personal sign: a sudden and unexplained feeling of intense anxiety. This is not everyday worrying. It can feel like a wave of panic or a sense of impending doom that comes out of nowhere, with no logical trigger. You might be having a perfectly calm day when suddenly, you are overcome with the feeling that something is dreadfully wrong. It is crucial to understand that this is not just in your head. This is now believed to be a primal, biological response. Your brain and nervous system are incredibly attuned to your body's internal state. They can sense the major crisis of a struggling heart long before you can consciously identify the physical symptoms. This feeling of anxiety is your body's most ancient alarm system screaming that there is an internal threat. Many survivors of heart attacks, particularly women, look back and recall this overwhelming sense of doom as one of their very first and most confusing symptoms. They knew something was terribly wrong, even if they couldn't name it. We have now covered a wide spectrum of signs, from the classic pressure in the chest to the deep whisper of fatigue. The most important takeaway from all of this is not a list to be memorized, but a principle to be lived by. You must trust yourself. You are the world's leading expert on your own body. You have lived in it your entire life. You know what feels normal, and you know when something feels off. There is a powerful tendency, especially among women who are so often caregivers for others, to downplay our own symptoms. We don't want to be a bother. We don't want to make a fuss over what might be nothing. We tell ourselves it's just stress, or indigestion, or menopause, or simply the process of getting older. We wait to see if it will go away. But when it comes to your heart, waiting can be a gamble you cannot afford to take. Please, give yourself permission to be your own most fierce and compassionate advocate. If you experience a collection of symptoms that feel new, unusual, and wrong for you, you have the right to get it checked out. You do not need to have crushing chest pain to have a valid concern about your heart. Your story, your feelings, and your intuition are valid. It is always better to seek help and be told that it's nothing to worry about, than to stay home and worrying that it might be something serious. Honoring the language of your body is the cornerstone of the Senior Forward health philosophy. It's the foundation of living a life filled with strength, confidence, and vibrant well-being. This knowledge is your power. Thank you for joining us on this important journey today. If this message has empowered you, please share it with the women you love, your mothers, your sisters, your daughters, and your friends. It is a conversation that can truly save a life. Continue to move forward with health, listen with wisdom, and trust in the deep knowledge you hold within.